So there is different times we show different facets of ourselves. And one of the things when we've trained speakers and virtual presenters, we'll do these exercises where I will assign an avatar, Richard, which is basically like, it's almost like a rehearsal technique that they would use in theater. And I'm going to make someone go over the top in a way that they are not, right? So one great example is if someone is very monotone and then they talk like this all the time and it's just all the same pitch the whole time, I will say, okay, you got to do your little presentation for us, but you got to be the kindergarten teacher. And so now, boys and girls, they have to overmodulate and they're trying to keep the attention of the kids. And is everyone listening? Okay, right.
Welcome to Sharpen the Spear podcast, where we help manufacturing executives command the front and win the floor. I'm Richard Walsh, creator of the Sharpened Impact methodology, and I spent decades helping leaders transform frontline teams, unlock hidden profit, and capture capacity they didn't even know they had. If you want to see where your leadership gaps are costing you and how to fix them, head over to grittolead.com and run the free Sharpened Impact Simulator today. Let's sharpen your edge and get started. And we are back on STS Sharpen the Spear podcast with another incredible guest, Anders Boulanger. It's pretty good, right? Yeah, okay. See, he tried to trip me up, but I don't let that happen because I'm a professional. But Anders, no one knows Anders better than Anders. So Anders, we need the backstory. Bring us up to speed so we can knock this conversation out.
Yeah, for sure. So just a little background about me. When I was 5 years old, I got a Fisher-Price magic set for Christmas. And that one little gift kind of changed my whole life. I got more and more magic books and sets for birthdays and Christmases. Started doing birthday parties when I was about 12 years old. Paid my way through university, got a physics degree. Started doing magic conferences and corporate events. I got trained by my mentor in trade shows back in 2007. And it kind of transformed how I performed and started creating engagement in trade show booths of companies like Microsoft, Fortinet, Veeam Software, a lot of tech companies. And so now I use that magic to be kind of a bridge to help connect with people. And my company, Engageify, we're on a mission to rehumanize business through engagement. And I wrote the book behind me there, Engage First, build trust, capture attention, and drive real results. And so it's really about all these learnings of having interactions with people kind of in the wild at trade shows and how we're kind of missing that these days, So with AI and technology, and we just don't rub shoulders with people as much anymore. I feel like it's kind of a dying skill. So I'm trying to bring that back in what we do.
Well, I love it. I think it's very timely. Okay, because I'm with you. I think the pendulum, as I often say, has swung too far to the automation side. And people are starting to realize that, actually. A lot of people aren't, but that's the masses, and I don't deal with the masses. So I'm just saying to people who understand engagement, they understand the meaning of it, the power of being in a room, if you will, right? And all that. They're starting to see kind of losing touch. I'm not really closing the deals I used to close. And when I am closing them, they're not what they used to be. That trust, that confidence factor is not there. People are engaging because, I had some good copy and stuff like that, but it's not, I don't feel like they're locked in. Is that kind of what you've been seeing out there?
Yeah. I mean, for example, even in our business, in the last, 8 months, cold email has just gone in the,
hate it.
Gone down. Right. And there's too much. It's kind of like marketing tends to wreck everything that's good eventually, right? Like, well, let's scale this, right? And so that whole piece, the emails aren't getting through. What's surfacing is what's real, right? And face to face is real. Being in a room, sharing the same air as someone, the trust is highest for in-person events. And so, the ROI, and we like to think of ROI as return on interactions. Right? Yes. Like how far can you take things? And of course, in business, we're always talking about sales and, that's what drives business. But, how can we, further that relationship, even if we just want to call it that, in the time that we have? and there's a lot of noise out there. So how do we cut through the noise, and how do we, my book's called Engage First, and in the background you can't see it, but if I hold it up, it says, lead, persuade, sell, influence, educate. Like, before you can do any of those, you have to get their attention. You have to engage first. And so, this, like I said, this kind of dying skill set, we need to revisit it. We've swung into the technology, swung into the remote virtual side of things so much. Actually, I shouldn't be down on virtual too much. Virtual actually made us realize how much we need engagement too. When we were in the heart of the pandemic, Richard, right? How many meetings and things, and they realized we need MCs that are interesting. We need some experiences. We need to like do a wine tasting mutual, at the same time. And so it kind of opened our eyes a little bit about what we're missing, right?
Well, I think, Anders, the challenge was, well, now how do we do it virtually? Like, we had to adapt to that. I mean, to get the Zoom and all that kind of stuff, but really it became someone like you can take an expertise in the room and probably has a far better chance of translating it to the virtual than the average person. Okay. Because a lot of people, they're on there and they're kind of, they're not, I think they're not grasping. Now I can say this because we do podcasts. I've done hundreds of podcasts. I've been guests on hundreds of shows, and there's a difference, right? I've had guests we talked about before we came on. We've had guests who are ready and guests who are not ready, okay, to be a guest. And we've had hosts who aren't very good hosts, okay, because there's still an art to interacting, because you and I are having a live conversation. Right now we're going back and forth, and does background matter? Does sound matter? Does the visual matter? What are we actually talking about? Does that matter? Can a guest hold 45 minutes or an hour of a conversation on their expertise? You think they would? Not always the case, right? Because I don't think they're trained to go back to you in engagement. I just don't think they've got that ability to really engage with people, capture that, and hold that attention.
Well, and I think there's so much to unpack there too, Richard. As you kind of listed all of those things, we're talking about the sound, the visual, the performance of it. And I think a lot of people don't give themselves the permission to turn on, to give a performance. Maybe I find a lot of times people have trouble reconciling being authentic, but also showing the best part of themselves in the moment that they need to, right? Just because you're on doesn't mean you're not yourself. We have many different personas that we have, right? We're different people when we're with our spouse, when we're with our kids, especially when they're little, right? We're different when we're at work, so there is different times we show different facets of ourselves. And one of the things when we've trained speakers and virtual presenters, we'll do these exercises where I will assign an avatar, Richard, which is basically it's almost like a rehearsal technique that they would use in theater. And I'm going to make someone go over the top in a way that they are not, right? So one great example is if someone is very monotone and then they talk like this all the time and it's just all the same pitch the whole time, I will say, okay, you got to do your little presentation for us, but you got to be the kindergarten teacher. And so now, boys and girls, they have to overmodulate, and they're trying to keep the attention of the kids. And is everyone listening? Okay, right. And so when we kind of debrief it at the end, they're like, oh my goodness, that was they feel like it's so over the top, and it was just, they're embarrassed. And the result though is everyone around them goes, that was so good. You should do more of that. Right? Like we're so, our self-concept is sometimes so buttoned down that I think we need to be given permission to kind of let ourselves out of the barn a little bit, right? And show off who we are.
Yeah, I love it. I think you're right. I think, and it's situational, like you said.
Exactly.
Depending on your audience, the stage you're on, the room you're in, whatever that is, I've been on all the different situations too. And listen, I got a room full of contractors. Okay. I'm speaking a little different. Okay. Then a room of executives.
When in Rome.
That's right. Exactly. It's a different thing, right? It's a different thing. I mean, I can have different kinds of fun. Okay. With my audience, if I know who they are, right? So I can tailor the message to that. And it makes it great.
And that's a big part of rapport, right? The idea that we like people who are like us, right? So if there's a similar cadence of speech, a similar vernacular, the words that you use, if that's in touch with that group, even the body language, like right now, Richard, you're nodding your head. I'm kind of like nodding my head with you. I'm mirroring and matching, right? Like unconsciously, I'm not trying to do it.
Right.
But these are those things that you learn rapport as a skill. And when you don't have rapport, that's when you can really apply it, right? Because you're like, why is this not working, right?
Yeah.
So all of these, there's so much going on in terms of the personal dynamics that I find fascinating. And I like to geek out about it, but not everyone's all into that. But in certain roles, it's like sales and things that you do need to further those relationships. It's good to get versed on that.
Yeah, I was having a discussion yesterday with someone at lunch about the remote culture.
Okay.
Where we're talking about business. I'm like, well, I'm waiting for the real data. I don't know how they're going to get it, because a lot of people being brought back into the office now.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm like, the remote thing was cool back 5 years ago. Everyone had to do it and they kind of got into it, but I don't know how effective it is. Okay. I mean, some people can do it really well. I cannot. Okay. Tried. I mean, I did have 6 kids. Hard to do it when 6 kids are running around you the whole time. Right. But even now they're grown, and it's like, I don't work at home. I can do a little bit. Right. But it can't be primary. I don't have the home office and that whole thing. But I think a lot of people have not, again, it's more seclusion. What that is. And I think what the companies are realizing is we need the power of the room. We need the energy of being around people. I have an office at a co-working space because I want the energy of all these other people, and I meet people, I communicate every day, and it's
collaboration, important. Even with strangers, like Tony Hsieh at Zappos. He passed away a number of years ago, but he made it so that in Vegas, their head office there was only one door that they could come in and out of, because he didn't want people going out the side door and not seeing each other. He wanted that kind of mix, right? He wanted that happening. And when you said not being effective, there's something we talk about in the book, is what I call the hierarchy of communication, and it's like the higher up you go, the more engaging it is and the more effective it is, but it's not always convenient. So like at the bottom, you just have written communication, whether that is longhand, whether that's typed, right? You just have the words. That's all you have. No tone, and not even emojis at this point. Okay. I'm not counting that. That's the next layer up though, is if you do have emojis, which seems so silly to count that, but there is some research that when people see an emoji, there's enough of a face there that it lights up parts of the brain that recognize a face, right? So there is something, not to mention you're making a joke. You don't want to be taken out of context. You're throwing an emoji. Everyone you're able to have some.
Emojis are lifesavers.
They're
bad text conversation.
Thank God for emojis. You know what I'm saying? That's another podcast we can do called "Thank God for Emojis."
That's right.
So the next level up from that is a phone call. Right now you can hear the tone of someone's voice. Right? They can use the pace, the pitch, the intonation, the speed, all all of those pieces, the volume, to convey what it is, they're saying. And we've seen that famous Moravian study, Richard. And I always have to kind of put a little pin in this and say, it's always explained poorly. And the Moravian study is, that 7% of the words, 37% of the tone, 55% of the body language. That was when those things were in conflict, what is believed. It's not just the case. Like, you can't just use that as a blanket statement.
All communication.
Right. And so one of the examples I often say though is there is some truth to it, because I can call my son when he was little, I'd be like, Keaton, like his name's Keaton. But if I say it that way, it means come here, buddy. Right. But then if I'm like Keaton, and you can't see me if you're just listening, but my eyebrows were down and I was intense, now it's you're in trouble, right? Like the same word, completely different meanings, right? So there's elements of that. So that tone of voice is so important. And then you go up above that, you got the virtual, because now we have some visual element at the same time, like we're doing right now, Richard. Except, you can see me about chest up. I can see about you shoulders up, right? We can't fully express ourselves. In fact, sometimes when I'm on a virtual call, like I back up so that I can like stretch my arms out, because I feel sometimes hemmed in, because I love to use my hands when I talk, right? I'm a visual person. And then the last piece of that hierarchy at the very top, that's in person. No matter how much you click from place to place, you'll never replace face to face, right?
Yeah.
It's just, it doesn't get any better than that. Now, it's not always going to be convenient to go as high up as you can, right? But being in the office, you can go right to the top very easily, right? And that, so what's convenient is also effective and is also engaging in that instance.
Yeah, like I said, I went to lunch with the guy yesterday to go to lunch to face to face. You know, we spent an hour and 45 minutes. I was expecting an hour. I got an extra 45 minutes. We had a lot of deep conversation. I was pitching, talking about what we can do for each other and everything else. But it was just, there's power in that. And I'll tell you, nothing happened. Didn't get anything I wanted.
Oh,
but I did though. I got all the information I needed. Like, I can't help this individual because he's not ready to be helped.
Oh, okay. So it's kind of like you qualified him out in a sense.
Exactly.
So
and
which
I thought,
saves you time down the future. Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought I was going to close the deal.
Yeah.
I thought I got this. I bring the whole folder. I got everything. Never even opened it. Okay.
Yeah.
Like the conversation with this, and I'm just directing that conversation. We're back and forth, and I'm like, yep, nothing's happening here.
Yeah.
It was just a nice lunch. From some
Yeah, that's right.
Just had that. I'm like, you know what? I learned a lot. I got a lot of outcome out of that. I didn't get anything I air quote wanted, but I did, because I learned a lot of cool things. I had to redirect some things, reformat how I'm pitching certain things or going to pitch them, because I didn't have
tighten up qualifications.
Answers. I didn't have the right answers for the and I'm like, usually I'm not this bad. Okay. It's just
and law of big numbers too, Richard, right? Like some of these weird ones are going to sneak through, and just try to prevent it in the future so that, tighten the process.
But, the point was like, let's get together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because we could text and we could send emails and I could whatever, but it's like, we have that opportunity to do that. And I think, to me, again, you're getting different reads. So that when we're engaging, it's body posture. I mean, I'm literally leaning back in the chair. We're just relaxed.
Yeah.
You see how relaxed when we're just talking about different things and working. We got a lot in common. And it was really, and that's why I went an hour and 45 minutes.
Yeah.
It wasn't a business lunch where I got to get back to the office, all this kind of stuff. It was like, man, we're both owners.
Yeah. Yeah.
Theoretically, we own our time. Okay.
Right.
It's always the case, but yesterday we did. We could do that.
It's the the having sharing bread with people is such a ceremonial thing too, right? Like having a meal, there is something beautiful to that. Whether it's be able to say, when coming out of pandemic, we couldn't do that for a long time. We kind of got to appreciate these things that we've got back, right? So yeah,
I'm with you. I think. So let's talk about the engagement aspect. Okay. So we can go through, because I know you can hit this on all levels. So let's start with the most difficult thing, the icebreaker. Okay. Sure. You're just, it's cold. You got your cold emails. We already know those aren't really effective, but it's that first icebreaker. Well, how do we do this?
For me, I think the big thing about that is that pattern interrupt, right? Like when we're running our own patterns, so the things that we normally expect, the expectations are there. And when something jumps out or is just, not the usual, you kind of go, what? Right. And in that moment, there's kind of like, you create this gap, and depending on how you handle that gap, you can then win people over, right? Like this. So one of the things that I grew up doing magic at restaurants, and I would go to a table of people who are having a conversation, they're doing their thing, and your job is to interrupt them. They're not eating yet. Okay, this is before the meal comes, but the idea, you got to interrupt them. And how do you interrupt them and then ingratiate yourself to them, right? Like that you're doing something kind of rude, but then you got to take over and I just want to do my set, right? I want to be able to entertain these people. Or it's at a cocktail hour and there's groups of people, mingling. So one of the things I developed over the years was this kind of, sorry for the interruption, remember your topic. And then when I leave, you just jump right back into that sucker. And so what happens there is they kind of like, what? Huh? And then it's kind of cheeky enough that people, laugh, and then you're able to just take over and take control. So whatever you can do to capture that attention. Another example is at a trade show. I'm hired as a trade show infotainer to build crowds of people around the booth, and me and my teams of infotainers that do this. And so there's a lot of preoccupation happening. You're just walking the show. There's all these booths, right? There's a lot of noise. There's a lot happening. And we start off, I start off by putting $2,000 down on the floor. And that catches, like, what's all that cash doing? And I start talking about what we're going to do. And then I start off with a basic card trick, if you will. Looks like a basic card trick, but it ends where I'm actually cutting the deck with a shadow and the deck's moving. And it's just like, but people stop and they see the cash on the floor, me kneeling on the floor, and it paints this picture of something that is unusual. And so that's that first thing. We've attracted the attention, but that's only the first step, right? We can't, if you just try to capture attention, lots of things can do that.
Yeah, this is important. Yeah, this
right?
Part's
because
important.
It's like, you can, like, total non sequiturs, weird, just yelling out loud things, like, lots of things attract attention, but unless there is a connection, unless there's a reason, unless there's relevance, this all just comes off as a desperate cry for attention or a plea for help, if you will. Right. So one of the reminders of that to me is years ago at VMworld, which was a big tech trade show back in the day, there was these, those green screen suits that you can wear the whole body thing. There was 3 people wearing these blue suits, and the company had a blue branding. And then this techno music just cranked up super loud, and they came out and they danced kind of like robots. And everyone was like, whoa, and everyone's watching this. And then the song ended, and then they just went back into the booth and disappeared, and that was it. And it was kind of like, what the hell was that? Like, it's okay that they ask that question as long as you have that continuity, that pivot. Like, how do you go into? And so lots of that relevance is so key. So breaking the ice, a joke, that's a classic that people will use. Sometimes giving a gift, like there's a great book called The Art of Schmoozing by AJ. Have you ever heard of it, Richard? No. It's AJ was a circus clown back in the day, but he made this thing where he called them tchotchkes, but his trunk was full of different gifts that he would just keep on stock. And whenever he came over, whenever he met someone, he always gave a gift. And it's kind of like the warm fuzzies that you get when you get a gift just started being associated to him, right? And so he would win people over instantly because he gave them a gift, right? So there's lots of kind of tools and I don't dare say gimmicks even, right? Like a gimmick is sometimes that term or that word gimmicky can sound bad, but in magic, a gimmick is a secret device that makes the trick work. And if you have something that you can use systematically, time and time again, that gets you the results you want, that's okay. I think that's good, right? Yeah, if you can determine the outcome before it begins because of this gimmick, I would use that all day long.
Yeah, that's cool. So let me run this by you. I'll give you a scenario. So there's a table. We're at a restaurant. So I could just go up to the table and just like, oh man, that chicken looks amazing. Just pick it up and take a bite. Is that a pattern interrupt? How would that work?
Okay, there may be some caveats here, Richard. I don't know if I was.
I'll pay for the meal.
Enough, but
I'll pay for the meal.
That's a pattern interrupt. Yeah, that's
and just leave.
Probably some
throw 50 on the table and just walk out.
Some rules of thumb I should lay down here somewhere, but yeah. Buying someone dinner would be a thrill. It's just that eating off their plate. That's the
maybe
part
just stick my finger in the mashed potatoes and take it.
There we go.
And
there we go. Yeah.
Man,
thanks. That's a real power play. Depending, what you're. There's a book. There's a book called what's it called now? It's downstairs. It'll come to me. The pitch, how to pitch anything. I think it's called. Yeah. And he talks about going up to this. He's in an executive's office, and there's an apple on the desk of the boss, and he picks up the apple and starts eating it. And it was this like super ballsy, bold thing to
Right.
do. But the way he did it, it still pivoted into what they were trying to do. And so this idea was, it was about like, so we need to have a deal that works for both of us. And it was kind of, then he took the apple and cut it in half and gave him half. And so it was kind of like, it made sense for the pitch, right? And so there are sometimes things that you can do that are, out there, but you have to also be the kind of person to have the confidence to pull that off, right? It's just
Well,
going up there and thumbing your nose at someone is not recommended in most cases, because we want to build rapport and we don't want to break rapport unless it's very much on purpose, in a sense, having that rapport come down a bit.
Yeah, I think about and I'm sure you've met people like this too, but I've come away and gone, well, he's quite forgettable.
Forgettable, yeah.
Forgettable. Like, that's a very forgettable person. Like, that was, other people say, I'll never get that 5 minutes back or whatever. But I'm like,
right.
Well, what's he like? I go, he's pretty forgettable.
Well, and I think that's, I mean, no one wants to be that, right? And this is also a case of why we need to kind of look at how people perceive us. This idea that at the first point of connection, when you meet someone, if that is not a moment of impact, that is the moment where you start being forgotten.
Yeah.
Right. And so how you stand out, how you, be generous of yourself in that interaction by, showing off who you are and really, getting into who they are too. Right. The Dale Carnegie, right. He was the best dinner guest ever. And all he did was ask questions. Right. Yeah.
I mention that because there's people find me somewhat memorable. A lot of people remember me. I don't remember them. And it's a two-parter on the I don't remember them. One part is some people are forgettable. Other ones is I think I just forget them because I don't care. And I'm being hard on myself. But
I was going to say, Richard, are you maybe just an asshole? Is this part of it? Like
there's that. That was a season. That was a season. So let me give this to so my brother, they live in Arizona, I'm here in Wisconsin, and he sends me these pictures. He found this box cleaning out my dad's house and stuff, of these pictures from 35, 40 years ago. Okay. So he's got my two brothers, their wives, and I'm with a girl. I'm like, hey, is this so-and-so? I'm like, oh, I have no idea who that is. We're in like this family picture.
Yeah.
This girl. And I'm like, I have no idea who that is. Wasn't that so? I go, no. I don't know who that is. And I'm really trying to think. And I still don't know who it is. And my wife, who I've been married 26 years, right? She's like, you're unbelievable. You're just, you got like, and I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not.
Well, it was a long time ago. I mean, there's that. I mean, it was like, there's that. I mean, part of it too, like this is not what I speak on in my expertise, but I do use it, is, memory techniques for, faces and things like that. Right. And so I do a thing when I perform my keynote where if I get a chance to interact with people before, that name goes into my head. I say it a few times. If there's something about them that I can connect to that name, David Dove, right? You see a dove perched or crapping on their head, and you make it fun and all those things that that the memory techniques are known for. But just using a few of them throughout the presentation, people suddenly give you credit, like everyone in the room, right? Like it's funny how just a little bit of effort can be appreciated a ton on that side of things with remembering people's names, and now you become memorable because you remembered them. Just that stands out.
I had a friend was that he'd speak to these college kids, high school kids like that. He'd be in a room, there's 25, 30 kids. He'd just have them, just give me your name. And he'd go through the whole room.
Yeah.
One time. End of the whole thing. All right, let me just so you know, Bob, Jim, Bob. And he'd do the whole room. Everyone's like, oh my, like, I'm like, I could never. Okay. But he just,
you could though. You could. And
if I really, really wanted to, if I want to devote like years of working on that, I could. But I love that technique because that was a memorable thing for them.
A
You know,
big,
and I'm
I
still
have a,
talking about it. That was 30 years ago,
yeah,
and
right,
I'm still
right.
talking
Yeah.
about it. Right.
Yeah,
So it's
exactly. Well, and yeah, how can we stand up, be remembered, doing different things like that? I mean, it might be worth learning something like that for some people
that's right.
listening, right? I have a couple of memory experts who are friends of mine, and they, one of the things that they say, and I totally believe this, is that we're so hard on ourselves in terms of our memory that we'll say, "Oh, I'm horrible with names."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you keep saying
Just
that about yourself,
reinforce
right?
that. Yeah. Just
But
reinforce it.
yeah, exactly. But when you start kind of making an effort and asking their name and doing some steps to repeat it in your head and just get it, and then think, how am I going to remember this in the future? Just that little process does wonders. And then stop saying that you're bad with names, because everyone is so bad with names. They say that about themselves, that when you start becoming just a little bit better, it's amazing, right?
I
And
always, I, I always said two things, Anders. I'm like, well, I don't remember people's names because I truly don't care. That was my first thing. Okay. Because I don't care.
well,
Okay.
that's what we're
So,
talking about.
but
Yeah.
here's the point. Like, so then I said, well, that's wrong. Okay.
Yeah.
When Heather
Okay.
relations really said, I don't care. Okay. So I'm going to stop doing that. I'm going to stop
Good.
saying it's because I don't care. Because I do care, but it's still, I'll do it repeated a couple times, do all like, as soon as I meet them. But what I found was not just remembering their name in the conversation. It was 4 days later, 2 weeks later, and you remember. That's where the power is. When you walked
Mm,
up with someone, because they don't remember your name, most likely,
yeah.
okay, and you say, "Hey, Andrews, man, good to see you again, man. Remember we met like 2 weeks ago?" And you're like, "Okay," and you're like, "Man, you remember my name?" That is like a
Nah,
register, man. That is a
right.
lock in. Like, okay, now I have to reciprocate. I can't remember this dude's name, but I feel bad because like he remembered me. What the heck did we talk about? You know what I mean? So there's a
Mhm.
lot of power. It's an incredible tool. That's all I'm saying.
And
Like that ability to bring that stuff back up and remember that person, attach something to it,
yeah.
is good.
Well, and just think too of the confidence you have when you see someone and you know their name, you're going to approach, right? You're going to instigate that interaction. As far as, like, if you see someone and you're like, oh, I should know their name but I don't, you're going to hang back,
That's right.
right? And so these moments of engagement and that willingness to engage, that's, there's the skills and the things that we're talking about that when you're in an interaction, but you have to want to do it. You have to want, and when you have two people, we talk about this in trade shows because we do trade show trainings and, like, making sure the booth staff are willing to engage. First thing is we want to make sure that they're not sending a vibe out that says "don't bug me," right? So that's like base level. Let's not try to repel any incoming engagement, right? And
Let
then
me
the
let me
next
jump in here
level,
1 second.
yeah, for sure.
Just so everyone knows, trade shows, done a ton of them. Okay, mother business. It is an art form. Okay, to be successful at a trade show, that's why I can't wait for you to continue. It's an art form. It's worth paying people, hiring people. Like you don't understand the competition and every little bit that goes in just to grab some wandering individual to your, not just to your booth, but then to actually listen, do the whole thing. So and people just think you just go set up your booth because you're amazing. Like, and I got stories. I'm not even going to share them, but
Yeah.
I got stories. So like,
Oh,
this is really important. I want people to kind of grab a hold of this because they think they're just going to show up with a booth and they're amazing,
yeah.
and they're going to be sad.
Well, and what you're saying there, so I'll finish that thought and then I'll kind of get into this
Thank
other
you.
thing, because you're triggering all
Sorry.
kinds of things for me
Sorry.
here, Richard. Is that in a good way? Is that the first level is don't repel incoming engagement,
Yep.
and then this next level is how do we be proactive and stop people, right? And so what you were just talking about is people show up and they think it's going to be awesome. We have a model, we call it the trade show triangle. And there's 4 levels of exhibitors. And the bottom level is what we call the booth buyer. And they just buy a booth and show up and hope for the best, right? And they buy into this myth that if you build it, they will come,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's That's Field of Dreams for, anyone who goes back to that old movie, and they're dreaming if they think that's going to work, right? They're so passive and so reactive, or just sitting back. So they have to go up a level. The next level, we call it exhibitor, and at exhibitor level, a little bit more engagement. They are a little bit better lead quality, a little more differentiated. Okay, they're a little more proactive, but still they're below that middle line in this triangle, and that middle line is what we call the train and track line. They're not training their booth staff. They're not investing in their people. 49% of companies never or rarely train their booth staff. And yet 85% of your success comes from, the booth staff. There's all these stats. There's a new one that came out from CEIR, which is the Center of Exhibition Industry Research, which was that 49% of companies who train their booth staff got a 20% increase in leads or more. So it's like there's all these stats for, you got to invest in your people, but what ends up happening is everyone's got their budget, and then they see, oh, look what we can get. That's going to look amazing. And we get into this kind of form and function kind of trap, right? Where is your booth pretty, or is it pretty effective? Because what makes it effective is the people working it. And I was just at a trade show the other day, and this is one of my hobbies because I make slide decks of people doing things wrong. And I get a picture of 3 people in the booth all down on their phone. Right. And if I can get away with taking that picture and you never saw me, how many people are walking by that could be perfect fit, customers for them, and they would have never stopped them. They would have never known. It's like whales of clients could be walking by. So there's so much that goes into that, the awareness and all that. But Richard, I want to hear a little bit about your experience and what maybe some of the stuff you saw out there, because you alluded to some stories yourself.
So I would do the Chicago Flower and Garden Show every year, and we get 80,000 people through there in 8 days. No, 180,000 people.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people, right? So we build these giant gardens, beautiful. I build good water features, sculpture, all that stuff. But then behind all that is the vendor area. It's a Navy Pier in Chicago, right? So huge vendors everywhere. Here's one thing you'd see it every year, and I did about 10 years in a row. All of a sudden, everyone's walking around with a thing. Like there's an expandable rake, little tiny thing, it kind of expands. And it's okay. Yeah. And all of a sudden you see everybody's got this rake.
Yeah.
Everybody. And I'm like, what is the deal with this rake? So, and every year it's something else. One year it's a rake, another one it's a broom, another one it's this or whatever it is, right? So I'm like, I gotta go find out. Because I'm in my garden. Okay, and I'm talking to all these people walking through and all my stuff, and I'm trying to work, set appointments and do all that. So I go back, and this is a positive example, but it's a guy and his daughter selling this rake. They've gone through 4 semis of rakes.
Yeah, just pitching, because it's very like
they're doing the demo. They're doing the whole
demo.
Thing, and they're
really good demo.
It's a circus. Okay, yeah. I mean, I think they sold like $375,000 worth of rakes.
Yeah,
in that period, and it's just it. And then, so here's the funny part. So I had these laser cutout. I did steel. I made these little like stick in the garden, like little caricature things, whatever, worms, whatever. So I've got my wife and my sister-in-law going to sell them. Okay. Got 2 attractive girls, and they're going to sit there. They're going to sell this. And I've got like 10 grand worth of these things. Okay. Cost. I'm like, we need to sell these things. So like not much happen. I can't get there. I'm in my garden. Well, I walk by and they're just sitting in these low chairs, just sitting there.
Waiting.
I mean, just sitting there. And I'm like, oh, how's it going? It's okay. Okay. I got to get back. 8 days. $29.
Oh,
they sold like 3 things. I'm like, okay, that kind of sucked. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and that pile of steel sat at my construction area for the next 6 years. Okay. So I finally scrapped it. You know what I mean? But, and I'd see other booths like that too. I'd walk around and you see them like, there's no engagement. Some people stand out in front of their booth and they'll engage and they'll talk. Some people have flashing lights, and I'm like like freaking out at all the stuff. Some have a corner booth, but I did a couple of years and I just gave up. Okay. I did another one. So and now I'm working the booth. I got my backdrop, and I had changed the name of my 20-year company, just flipped a little bit from Rick Rock to Extreme Pools. So I had ponds, waterfalls, streams. Now I put Extreme Pools because I'm these super high-end swimming pools that look like quarries and brick paper bottoms, really cool. So I'm like, I'm going to do that. So people would walk by, literally, I'm like, they look at my sign and they go, oh, no, that's swimming pools. I'm looking for a pond. And I'm like, that's what they do.
Yeah.
It's not, they don't read past the first words.
Right.
Like people only see certain things, right? So
Yeah.
it comes down to a lot of different methods of communication, but I just gave up because I either need to hire someone who's like a pro, or just stop doing this because it wasn't in my garden. I'm selling hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm selling what I do because I'm the pro.
Yeah.
I'm animated, right? I'm in there. I built all this. They're seeing my work. So just that was my big takeaway was I need professionals or trained individuals, which is the same thing as a professional.
And that show is 8 days long, like you're saying, Richard.
I'm telling you.
That's so I've never worked an 8-day show in my life. I'm not like 4 days is the most I ever do. Like I do a lot more of these B2B shows, right? Not B2C shows, which, in this case, but they take a lot of energy, right? Mm-hmm. And so people who are not used to working a trade show, they have trouble making it through the day, right? And oftentimes some of my companies, the clients we work with, they have a morning shift and an afternoon shift. And it's kind of like, oh, isn't that nice for you, right? Like that you get to just work a half day, but then they go back and they do their, office work or whatever remotely. But yeah, we do use engagement specialists with our company, which are professional booth staff who have that energy level. They don't take no to heart, right? They've had so many no's in their life. They just keep working, and they're also detached a little bit.
They don't have emotional attachment to the business or the product.
That's right. Which helps.
It's just a thing, man. I got to do this for 2 days. You go to an auto show, the big auto show, like in Chicago at McCormick. They got all these models, they do their thing and they chat and they sit on a little thing, revolving thing. They talk about the car, then that's what they do. They travel over the country and they do that stuff. They're professionals. That's what they do. They can maintain those energy levels for those times. Like you said, I think the energy, Anders, is the big thing.
It's the huge
perspective. It's like,
well, from engagement, like not just trade shows. Like if we go back to kind of the engagement topic, if you will, one of the things that we have is I have like I call it the boring to bold line. So it's like this, everyone sits somewhere on this line, this horizontal line. And, right somewhere in the middle-ish, or there's some sort of sweet spot for you that you got to find where, you're taking the energy levels up, the modulation of your voice, that it's interesting. It's good. You're engaging, but so many people are towards that boring line, that they're afraid to be over the top, that they relegate themselves to being on the boring side of the line. Right. And so again, going kind of back to that permission piece to kind of bring yourself, but that energy thing, I really discovered that during the pandemic where I had to record a video. There was a welcome video for a virtual trade show, Richard. We were doing that at one point, right? Where there was a virtual trade show booth. I'm normally the guy working in the booth doing the presentations. They said, can you still be our guy? Welcome them in. So I remember I was like, hey, it's Anders here for the, Veeam virtual booth, blah, 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 blah. And I play back the video and I go, oh man, that's really flat. Right? Like there's just what you think you're sending is not what people are always receiving. And I thought I was just killing it with peppiness. And then I finally got it to where I needed to be. And virtual, in a sense, kills the energy too, right? The camera, like you're not feeling the same energy flow that you would, right? So there's all kinds of challenges. But yeah, that energy, that transfer of enthusiasm, which sometimes people define sales as some, transfer of enthusiasm. That's so key in all of these interactions.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And I was talking about this the other day with a guest too, we talked about a little bit earlier with the different percentages of communication and what it all involves. And I think even whether you're a business owner or you're a salesperson or whatever that is, you have to study this. Yeah. Okay. This needs to be a study. Okay. You can train, but you really have to understand when you see someone who's like, man, that was such a good presentation. Like if you have the opportunity to have a copy of the video, like watch it for a whole different reason, not for the topic,
Mm,
but
yeah.
watch what they did. I'll do that in church. Okay.
Yeah.
Good pastors, how they're
Yeah.
working, how they're moving, how they're talking, what they do, how they engage. Like
Your
there's a
cadence.
lot, right? Like I learn a lot. Okay. And there's good ones and there's terrible ones, like any other
Yeah.
profession. Okay. But the uniqueness, I mean, the way that people can just, speak to that individual while you're speaking to the room,
Hmm.
how you engage an entire room of 500 people, of 1,000 people. How do you
Yeah.
do that? What does that actually look like and stuff, and learn those techniques and then try to apply them when appropriate, right? In certain situations. I used to do this a lot with podcasting. Was I would listen. I don't do it quite as much anymore because I've done just a gazillion, but
Hmm.
I'd
Hmm.
listen to my podcasts. My wife would always be
Yeah.
like, "Really, you're listening to yourself?"
Yeah.
And I'm
You
like, I learn.
egotistical
I
son of
go,
a
I,
gun.
I have to. I like, listen. I have to learn. I say things because
Yeah.
we are like this. We're 100% conversational.
Yeah.
Nothing here is planned. Anders and I, we are just doing it. Like if you can't tell, okay, like
Obviously. Yeah.
we're just, we're just rolling. But this is the
Yeah.
point. Like these, I have to listen to.
Yeah.
Like what did I do off the cuff?
Right.
Because you can win or lose doing that. Sometimes it's great,
Well,
but sometimes.
I think you bring up a great point, and feedback is so crucial, right? And so entertainers, I have lots of entertainer friends, comedians, magicians, jugglers, all kinds of hypnotists, everything. And when a comedian is a great example is when a comedian's doing well, they know it, right?
Right.
They immediate feedback. They say the joke, they hear the laugh, right? And that is that little pat on the back, like you're doing something right. And so rarely do everyday people get feedback, right? Like sometimes you got to wait 6 months to get your review, from
Right.
your boss or your manager, right? And so in my book, I kind of talk about this too, that we need to kind of like measure ourselves, like go out there when you have your interactions, just take a look, step back for a second. How did that go? Like look at what you did, because you can be giving yourself feedback, but you got to be thinking about measuring the right things, right? So, very key, right? What you're doing, listening to your podcast, that's work. It's hard.
Yeah.
A lot of people would never want to listen to themselves, right?
I
It's
hate
just
my voice. I go, I
right.
don't hate my
It,
voice. I like my voice.
well, you know what? I think everyone starts hating their voice until they listen to it enough that they go, "Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I think
me."
so. Yeah,
Right?
they'll
I think
recognize it. Yeah.
and they don't give them, so they have not watched video, listened to themselves enough to actually get used to it. So but again, get over yourself, give
I
yourself
was
permission,
I was a guest on a podcast with this woman. She was great, great host, really great host. She's like, oh, that voice, to me. I'm like,
Yeah.
and then did another one like, I don't know, months later, and she gets on, she goes, it's the voice. She just, just it was months ago. Like I don't remember, people from months ago, but it's just she had that. I'm like, well, that's really cool. But
Yeah.
like it was a real appreciation. Well, she's not saying this to everybody,
Yeah.
but it was just I've just learned to embrace it. I remember I had a PR, a lady who was going to do my PR way back in the day with all my sculptures and all the other stuff I did. And she wanted to be in PR. And then she's talked to me. She said, well, but we have to change the way you're speaking, a little too many dems and does. And I'm from Chicago. I got an accent, and all this stuff. And I am who I am. And I'm like, I go, oh, okay. I'm not going to do that. And she goes, well, it'll really help. I'll go, help with what? I go, I mean, I just roll. I'm not going to change the whole way I speak for what? I'm not understanding. That's not who I am, and you can probably go a little bit in each direction, but I'm like, do I need to, am I not conveying my points? What do you mean? Are you just saying how I pronounce something isn't correct? Because you don't say that, like when I say, would you? Like my wife has a friend, she hates that. Would you? Would you do that for me? Would you stop saying, would you? I'm like, no, I never will now.
WOULDJA, right? Would you?
Yeah, would you? Would you? See, we all say it, right? Would you?
That reminds me a lot of like you got Toastmasters, right? Where people
been
learn
there.
to public speak, and they have like an counter, which there's someone
Drop the
whose
pellet
only
in the
job
bucket. Yeah.
is to count the number of ums and ahs in your speech. And for some people, it is distracting, to watch, and they may need help that way. But there are things that, like, if you're getting your message across, you got a good energy, good vibe, and you're an original person like you, Richard, right? Like we wouldn't want to take the Chicago out of you. We wouldn't want to like that's what makes you endearing and makes you interesting, makes you yourself. And so in a lot of cases, people need to lean into themselves more, right? Like this just like it's okay to show who you are to people so that you become, you know, not forgettable, like what you were talking about before, right? Just if you're too bland, if you're too, you know, it's just you're gonna fade to the background.
There was a woman, she did all these training videos, right? For this, I won't even say the whole thing it was, but the she was like constant brain fart. And like I couldn't get through the program.
Yeah.
Finally I can't watch this. I mean, it's not like occasional. And then well, I went down the road and did not like that, like pause. Like like there's like something that's firing upstairs.
Doesn't instill confidence.
She's credentialing this whole thing. I'm like, I'm never going to be certified. I can't get through this training. There's just, and it was a lot of training.
I bought an audiobook like that one time where the author read it, and I just like, I can't do it. It's like and it was a sales book. And I was like, I like the content. I wanted to listen, and I just like, I can't do it. I'm sorry. You know, it was too much work, you know? And so there's a few things that I want to kind of tap into that when our listeners are listening, they want to create some engagement. We have an acronym we call SAVEU, SAVE, and then the letter U. And so the S is simple, right? We got to make things so simple that people can understand it. Our brain is 2% of our body weight, but it consumes 20% of our energy. So anytime anything gets too complex, you get what they call cognitive backlog, which is a complex term for it's overwhelm. That's what it is, right? It's just too much. We kind of tune out and then we don't pay attention, right? So we want to make sure things are simple. The A is we want to have authority. And this, what jogged my memory, is that person with all the ums and ahs was so distracting and you're wondering, do you even know your stuff? Like, are you making this up as you go? You know, perhaps it's words that you are undermining out, sort of, kind of, you know, those kind of words that are undermining your message. Maybe you're talking with uptalk and you're kind of saying this at the end, you're going up at the end of sentences and it sounds like you're asking questions, you know, and it's like, are you telling me, you're asking me, man, right? Yeah. Is it the way you dress, the way you carry yourself on stage, all of those things? If there's authority built in, we're going to listen because, you know, it's just coming from a place of authority. The V in SAVEU is for visual, auditory, kinesthetic. We have all different types of learners. You want to mix what we call your predicates, which are the words that you use. So, you know, does this clear to you? You know, does this ring a bell? Like those would be a visual, auditory. Are you picking up when I'm putting down? That would be the kinesthetic, or does this feel right to you? Right? Mixing those types of words so that we're engaging all those kinds of people that are in our audience. Okay. If it's a one-on-one and you know what they like, you can just use that, you know, modality, if you will. And then the E is emotion. We want to, you know, tap into emotions because emotions are the mental sticky notes to make things, you know, really memorable. So telling stories is such a great example of that. And then the last one is you focused, meaning what's, you know, the idea that it's going to benefit you, or you want to avoid something that's going to be bad for you, right? This is just total evolutionary kind of stuff, right? So what's in it for me? WIIFM, everyone's favorite radio station. Right. So if you're ever losing engagement, this will save you in that instance. So there's a little tip for your listeners.
That's a great acronym. I love it. I mean, it's important. Again, that's part of a craft. Okay. You got to learn that as a craft. If you're engaging with anybody, okay, you begin there. Again, speaking from stage, you know, addressing a group of any size, you know, these are the kind of things that make it assimilable, right? They can assimilate what you're saying. That's the thing. I did a presentation a week ago and same thing, full room, maybe 30 people. I'm doing a thing on AI and business, you know, keeping it really simple. I'm not trying to tell them the theory of AI. I'm saying how to use it in the simplest ways to make a big difference in your business. And is a great engagement. I always pull the audience in. That's a big part of one of my techniques when I do anything. It's always, if it's not 500 people, and sometimes even then, I mean, I'm grabbing people and I got people raising hands. I've got people engaging with me. I've got them answering questions. You know, I don't put them on the spot, but I draw the answers out, right? I know who's got what, and it just turns a room. Because one thing, like you were mentioning too, in a room like that, if no one's answering, you're trying to get some engagement, I call on someone. Either I know them and I ask them, I know they've got. If one person will start speaking, the whole room will open up. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a lot of times people, because I just want engagement. I want people to cross, and I'll ask the next person. So I've got a technique to do that. And I really like that, because then it goes back and forth, and that's memorable. And now everyone's engaged,
Yeah.
getting engagement in the room. Andy Andrews, that
Yeah.
is. He wrote Traveler's Gift and all this stuff. Like, so I'm speak like in '09 live, and I'm like second row, and just, he's one of the great communicators. He's unbelievable, right? But he comes down and asks this guy, he goes, "Oh, what's your name?" He guy goes, "Oh, it's Tony." He goes, "Hey, it's my dad's name." Oh, cool. And he's talking, he's walking all over the place, and asking another guy, "What's your name?" And he goes, "Bob." He goes, "Oh, that's my father's name." And then he does the next thing. He does like three people, and people say, they get it pretty quick and they laugh and stuff. But he had a lot of different ways of engaging, simple things like that. Again, not putting people on the spot, but just that movement, his movement in the room, off the stage, down in, just super comfortable.
As soon as you're in the audience, like the audience feels safe when you're on stage and they're in the audience. And then when you're in the audience, they're like, it's a little bit like a teacher walking the classroom, right? So you have to be paying attention. I talk at Exhibitor Live every year, which is a trade show and conference for trade show event managers and that sort of thing. And many of them, we're talking about remote working or whatever, many of them, they've got their computer up. They've got, the PDF of the slides that the session has to be submitted, but half the screen is their emails too, right? They're still working. And I love to go out there and then what are you working on? Right? Just like this whole, are you shut her down. Let's have an experience. Let's co-create something. And I think what you were just talking about too, where you want to get that engagement, you want to get them talking too. A presentation that's just a monologue is just you doing it for them.
Right.
But if you can co-create something and make it more of a dialogue, and I say this when I do my presentations at trade show booths, it's not me doing it for you, it's us doing it for each other. Does that make sense? Do you want to have a good time? Let's do this, right? And it's like, let's collaborate and make this work. And I think that gets people on board, and it's just, we're making something that will never be done again exactly the same way.
Well,
right?
You know what else, to that same point. Yeah, the same point, Anders. It's like you're giving them a little bit of authority. You know what I mean? Like, share your experience in this.
You're playing them a role. They're giving a role. So in clowning, a friend of mine wrote a book called Wink. And in clowning, the wink part of it refers to the fact that you're winking at the audience, and the audience has a role to play, that they are in the show too, and they get it. And so it's when both parties come together, you're creating something unique. Right? When they're not in on it, then it's just, again, kind of a flat, we're watching them do it. And so I think that's very,
I do these seminars, 2 day, 1 day, 2, 3 days for contractors, right? And teach them what they do and everything else. And you're always going to get the guy nodding off. Okay. So I'm always in the audience, I'll be standing next to him talking. He's, his head's down, his eyes are closed, I'm finally, I give him a little bump with my hip, he wakes up. I go, "Man, we keeping you up, brother?" And he's like, and everyone's sort of crowd go, "Come on with me. Come on up here on the stage." So I bring him up on the stage, and start asking, "What do you do? What do you're here for? What? You're here to learn what I do? Like, how you doing it? Let's talk about that." And then I use him as this subject,
Wow.
go back and forth and stuff with him and come see, now, have you thought about doing this? He goes, "No, that's a good idea." So I went from him being embarrassed to him like, I'm teaching right on stage. "Okay, man, thanks. You're a good dude, man. Thanks. You can go sit back down."
Whenever you take someone from the audience, and I mean, being a magician, I've used lots of volunteers over the years, but that one person, the whole audience lives vicariously through them. So your interaction with them is like you doing that to all the audience, right? So it's like you're focused energy on one person. It's not like you're ignoring the audience when you do that.
Right.
And it's a very special technique in a sense. We need to handle people properly. That sometimes can be tricky depending on characters and that kind of thing.
Like,
that's a whole
I
other
couldn't leave him as like he's sleeping, so I'm punishing him.
Right. Yeah.
And like he's sleeping, woke him up. We got to laugh. I brought him up. I lifted him up.
Yes.
I gave him new tools and then sent him back down. We exchanged. I taught him like one-on-one, like that dude never going to forget me.
Right. And you came off great.
Yeah.
Right. Because you could, certain volunteer interactions, you could come off, and I've had things happen where everything was great and something just shifted in a quick second. And you're like, whoa, I'm going to look like the bad guy here if I don't handle this properly. Right. So
it's like, and I didn't go in with all this insight. I just did it because I thought it was the thing to do. The dude's sleeping. I'm going to wake him up.
Well,
I hadn't planned any of this out. I'm just I just worked through it. It ended up well, so good,
Yeah.
Well, I got a new technique,
Got that in your back pocket, and there's probably, good instincts that you had there too that were at play.
Yeah. It's just unique. I mean, this whole conversation, I think it's super valuable to the listeners because big umbrella engagement, okay? How to engage, that kind of thing. But we got down in some nuts and bolts, which I really like, right? People seeing this kind of stuff and understanding. But I think the biggest takeaway I get from all of this, and I hope the audience does too, Anders, is that everybody needs this. Everyone needs to up their game in engagement, okay? We were separated for years, okay, from face to face. Like people, it just became this thing, and it's just weird. People are still standing too far away from each other. You know what I mean? The line, so they still have these remnants. I don't, because I didn't participate whatsoever with any of that. But it's like you see it. You see the remnants of that kind of forced behavior. And it was bad. Like people.
Well, not to mention the poor kids in school during that time. They're coming out of
My kids survived because we homeschooled.
Yeah.
We were homeschooling anyways. We homeschool all the way through, so they have they survived all that. But it's really, so it's not some lost art per se, right? The beauty of this, I think, is just attention. When you put your attention on something, okay, you're going to improve. It's the nature of life. Okay.
Yeah.
Pay a little more attention when you're engaging with people. So give us some final thoughts on that. Just really, people need to begin and put a little higher on the priority list, if you will, so they start interacting with others better, because when they do, I think they're going to see that fruit. So kind of what's your overall on that?
Yeah, I think what you were just saying, that, where attention goes, energy flows, right? And, when next time, rapport and mirroring and matching is a great little homework assignment for people, is that next time you're standing around having a conversation with someone, just look at what they're doing. Are their arms crossed, and are your arms crossed? Maybe their legs are crossed, or maybe they're gesturing in a certain way. You found yourself gesturing in a similar way. That is unconscious rapport. And it's like, it is amazing. Or you maybe watch people at a restaurant and they're talking to each other across the table. They're going to look very similar in terms of spine angle, all of these things. They're leaning on the table. I want that to be a little bit of a clue that, we are social animals, and how we interact, how we build trust, how we form relationships. That's all happening out there. And I think there's a lot of good stuff on the other side of these interactions. And if we put a little more attention to them and, get that feedback that we were talking about, that pat on the back that we're doing a good job, I think it can really change how your professional and your personal life go.
I love it. Yeah. Just simple stuff. Just bring it a little closer to the top on what you do every day. And you'll see when you're looking at the people, like you're saying, watch how people, everybody just walking in the crowd, see the differences, it's pretty amazing. So I love it. Well, Anders, this has been awesome. How do people get your book? How do they get in touch?
It is available on Amazon. Yeah, you can get it anywhere. And actually, if you're listening to this right now, also, if you get the book, even if you don't get the book, if you go to engage-first.com, that's a page for the book. And there's actually a free training for people, a presentation training that if you get the book, you can get access to that. But there's also a PDF that they can download on 4 ways to engage, to be more engaging. So they can look into that.
Awesome. Well, everyone take advantage of that. I definitely would make this a read. This is really, I'm sure, you discuss a lot of stuff that's in the book, but just getting that, as I love a good manual. Okay. There's a lot of good books, but like I write in field manual style. It's a how-to. I like how-to. It's like, and you get some actionable stuff in your book on how to engage in this kind of stuff. And don't forget all the trade show stuff. If you're doing trade shows, I'd reach out to Anders here because I'm
Yeah, for
telling you,
sure. We got
maybe he can
tons of
help you.
tools. Yeah, we got a lot of stuff you can have for free. And then, and
Or just
we can
hire
definitely
him,
help you
have him
train.
do your show. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's I'm glad we hit the trade show stuff, my man, because I'm telling you, I have nothing but pain. Listen, okay, so
It's a different
you know,
world. It's a different world for sure. Yeah.
it is, and just know that, like anything, you got to embrace, got to understand it. Man, we could spend a whole show just on that. Wow, that's awesome. Well, Anders, thank you for the time today, setting this aside, sharing anything you've got, man. I really, really love what you're doing. I love how you do it. Exceptional, just fantastic. So thank you for that time, and for everybody else, we'll see you on the next STS podcast. Thanks for joining me on the Sharpen the Spear podcast. If you're a manufacturing executive and you're serious about unlocking hidden profit, improving frontline leadership, and taking control of your floor, go to grit2lead.com right now. Run the free Sharpened Impact Simulator and discover your biggest opportunities are hiding. Don't leave millions on the table. Sharpen your spear, lead from the front, and win the floor. Until next time, stay sharp.